Right, we are live. Good. So,
Woo.
this is actually our second conversation, but as a wise man once said, once not enough and three's too many, but two will bring a man to his knees. Hey. So, hello, Nikhil. Did you like that joke?
I love it. Oh, it's
Yeah.
great.
How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for having me on. It's so nice to chat with you again. How are you?
I'm doing well. Now, here's the issue, right? I am aware that we will probably have quite a lot of crossover in terms of the people who watch live streams and things like that. Not just because I have been on your channel previously, but just because it's quite a small ecosystem, the sci-fi fantasy booktube. To some extent, that could probably be its own discussion. But
Totally.
what I'm always aware of is that there are some people who maybe don't know who you are, who know who I am, including my little sister, who messaged me about half an hour ago and went, "Who's this man?" So, would you introduce yourself very quickly before we maybe just return to the discussion we were having?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm also I'm a composer and a booktuber, and I started off working as a composer for film, television, and gaming, and I am also a book lover. So I found out about the Wheel of Time series, and I read all the books, and I ended up working on the show as a composer, and worked on his Dark Materials and some other book adaptation related things. So that's something I'm very passionate about. About a year ago, I decided, hey, why don't I join the conversation and join the fray and start a booktube channel? So I started one called Shelf Esteem because I'm a jack of all trades, master of puns, I like to say.
It's
And
a good name. It's a good name.
thanks, man. And here I am, and it's great to meet so many wonderful people in the community and just dive deeper into the books that we all love. So yeah, it's great to be here.
Do you know when I first made my channel? So my channel is technically 4 years old, although it's really only 3, 4 months old.
Oh,
Um,
really? I didn't know
but-
that.
so I made one half-hearted booktube video 4 years ago and then immediately deleted it. But what's interesting about it is part of the reason that I made Hi Shay. Part of the reason that I made that channel is I thought of the name Four Corners of the Page. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do any better than that. I'm just going to make that, and then we'll see what happens later. But I
Yeah,
think
yeah. That's a great name.
I'm always jealous of these people, like Zachary Shea, and I'll put him back up, who just put their name out there. I'm like, oh, that's the way of doing it, isn't it? Just your name, and a smile. That's all you need.
100%. It's so funny. I started a music YouTube channel years ago, and I always dreaded making content for it because I always felt like a job. And it's like when you work on something, you're very emotionally invested in it. So I said, I know how I'm going to get over my fear of putting up videos. I'm going to do 2 YouTube channels instead of 1. What could go wrong? But somehow it has actually helped because booktube space is just such a nice community. Everybody, I mean, like seeing everybody's comments here on the screen, it's like so many familiar faces and just awesome people. And we're all supportive of each other's reading addictions, I like to say. So it's
What were you afraid of?
sorry.
What were you afraid of when you were starting your channel?
Well, it's I feel the same about social media in general. Like putting anything on Instagram, whatever it was. Like when you write a piece of music, you're so invested in the creative process, and then you have to kind of advertise it. And I hated the idea of advertising, even though
Yes.
I want to put it out there. And it's like,
Yeah.
how do you find that balance between spreading a genuine version of yourself online that you feel comfortable sharing, but then also advertise the thing? It's like I always felt it was very difficult to reconcile the two. But
Yes.
I'm so passionate about reading. I said, hey, now I can talk about other people's works, and it's way less pressure, and I can kind of gush about other people's things. And actually, ironically, through that process, it's kind of actually helped my social media presence on the music side because it's helped me tell a better story around the music, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And get less stressed about the details. So I think it's like the quantity breeds quality thing. It's like after doing 170 videos or something on Shelf Esteem channel, it's like you get better at being comfortable in front of the camera. You get better about at editing, all these things that go into it. So I think it's less pressure now.
Yeah, this is something that, first of all, I agree with that. I was looking at my channel the other day. I'm like, when did I make 50 videos? Like, when did that happen?
It's absurd. Yeah.
And when you look at that from the outside, you think that's a lot of time, and it is. But the number kind of just builds organically.
Yeah.
The other thing I was thinking of when you were speaking is I totally agree with this issue of like advertising and self-promotion. And it's something I really struggle with on my channel. Like, what is the line there? Because sometimes it's like just organic. And sometimes you have to sort of, I'm going to put Shay's comment up for you to read while I'm talking. It's right. If I post my video on my channel, yes, that's fine. If I post my video as a post on my channel, say, hey, check this out tomorrow, that's fine. If I post my
Yeah.
video on Instagram, that's fine. If I post my video on, let's say I make a video on Stephen King and I post my video on the Stephen King subreddit, suddenly that seems quite self-indulgent and almost, what's the word? Pushy. And I haven't quite worked out what the line is there, you know? And maybe it's better just to let people come to you, but there's a line that I'm not quite sure where it is. Does that make any sense whatsoever?
It completely makes sense. And
Right.
you know what I've started to also realize is a lot of these things are less pressure than we make them to be. So for example, you know, if you put, let's say you put a link somewhere and you want to share it with people, you're excited to talk about it. Because, you know, honestly, it's not like we're sharing our own books per se. I mean, there are plenty of booktubers who do that, and they do it so well, you know. But for us, like, it's not like we're sharing our books, we're sharing other people's. So I think we could be a little bit more you know, sharing about it, I guess. Maybe I'm trying to persuade myself as much as you, but I think we could do that, and we can figure out through experience what that line is for us, because everyone's line is going to be different as well. I think that's the key, you know, and it's like being comfortable with whatever that is for oneself. That's maybe it's an ever evolving process, but that's definitely something I'm cognizant of it.
I was going to say that the communities are very different as well, aren't they? Right? Like I found, right, okay, I have to say this because it's my beloved, but I feel like the Malazan community is very, very welcoming and gets a bad reputation for it being quite snarky and elitist when actually people are very genuine and lovely there. And I would say the Wandering In community is also very lovely. That was one of my first videos on my channel. I posted it saying, hello, this is not very good, please watch. And they were genuinely the nicest group of people about it.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, but I have encountered other communities where you have to be, even when I was being very lovely about the text I was talking about, and I'll keep it nameless because I don't want them after me. But like there are exceptions to that rule. Like it's just all about navigation. I think it's being true to yourself and maybe having that same line, no matter where you're posting your stuff, trying to be equally respectful and equally, what's the word, candid.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I mean, you know, I think like, and this is something, David, I love about your videos as well, is, and you did this even with the PowerPoint presentation where you like lovingly talked about other booktubers that you're friends with and stuff. And
did you see yours?
Yeah, it was so nice, man. I mean, that was so nice of you. Yeah, you know, I feel like you don't make it about yourself. You know, you really do make it about the community. And I think like then it's already kind of ingrained in your channel, you know, just the way you like to talk about books and stuff. So yeah.
Well, I think what I've said to you, I think maybe on the previous stream, is that I think we share the same energy, which is just an enthusiasm for what we're doing. That whatever we're reading, even if we don't maybe enjoy what we're reading, but we'll always try and make it positive, and we'll always genuinely want to be here. And that's kind of the purpose of it. I was saying this to a friend actually the other night. So when I first made a booktube channel, right, I probably shouldn't be saying, I might have said this already. When I first made my booktube channel, I was terrified to kind of make that first video because I knew it was going to be terrible, right?
Yeah.
What I did to encourage myself was I went back to all these booktubers I like. I went back to their first video and I wanted to see what that was like. So I'm like, listen, we're seeing where they're at now after 4 or 5 years. Where were they on day one? And maybe not even day one, because often they sort of unlist their videos kind of after the fact as well.
Sure.
So I did this, and it was what you'd expect. Some people started off brilliantly, like Thomas Howell just starts off magnificently from the jump. But most people kind of raggedy, kind of jagged at the beginning. But there was one booktube channel that I adored for the way they started out. Hi guys, by the way. Library of a Viking, I think it was. Whose channel isn't that old, but his first video is absolutely wonderful. And because what he does is he says, I think he had an Instagram account before. I don't know the guy, but his first video was him saying, I'm starting this YouTube account and I give myself permission to walk away at any time.
Oh, that's brilliant.
I thought it was wonderful because it's you know, this is supposed to be fun. I want it to be fun. I want to keep my enthusiasm. And if I lose that, well, then it's not worth it.
That
kind of spoke to me.
I love that. I think it's, you know, it's interesting. It's like, you know, that whole idea of the sunk cost fallacy. You know, it's like when you do something and you stop enjoying it, let's say. I'm just saying, oh God, my first video was horrible. I feel the same way.
We can load it up, Derry, if you'd like.
Huh?
We can load it up, Derry, if you'd like. I didn't mean to cut you off, Nico.
No, it's all good. what was I saying?
Sunk cost fallacy.
Oh yes, right. So it's like the idea of people, and I see this in the music industry all the time. Is people may stop enjoying at a certain point what they do, and they genuinely kind of just don't have interest in it anymore. But they keep it going because it's like, oh, I've invested all this time in it. And I love the idea of our lives being more fluid because it's more accurate representation of who we are as people. We change. Like 6 years ago, 6 years ago today, let's say, I didn't even know about the Wheel of Time's existence. I'd read a few book series, but I was not an avid reader at that point like I am now. My whole trajectory of my life has changed, and it's like life is never static. It's fluid. Everything we do, we are constantly expanding our worldview. We have experiences that change who we are, so it's like it's a more accurate representation of how it really is, actually, to be able to say that. I think that's brilliant.
What you were saying about the kind of people kind of getting burnt out. I mean, teaching where I'm doing is one of the ultimate kind of sources of burnout. Is these people who stay in year after year. And I could tell stories, but I'm not going to, because it would be fair to do so on the internet. But you hear stories of burnout and what it does to people. Like, teachers just going whenever they have half an hour, just going home and not going home, but going into the car, just having a sleep. Because there's no motivation to continue there. And that's something that's really difficult to do. So I totally agree with.
Do you find that your motivation in teaching ebbs and flows and things like that, or?
That is a good question. I mean, the answer is probably yes. I think you're the first one who's asked me that.
Oh, really?
You know what? It's kind of like a relationship with, not necessarily romantic, friendship, family member. In the sense of, like, you will have energetic and less energetic days, but just like a relationship that you're committed to, there's always got to be that kind of base commitment and desire to keep it going. Does that make sense? So it's even when I've had 2 hours sleep, things are just scattered and disorganized. I've just spilled coffee on my shirt and I'm going into work. When it's a day like that, you still have to have that base. I'm going to do this for the people who are in my care. Because obviously with teaching, it's not really about you. It's about the people in front of you. And so if you ever do switch off, that's perilous, because it's not just about you getting some numbers wrong or whatever. It's about other people's lives. So it's an up and down. I'm just going to go to some comments very quickly, and then I want to pivot our conversation to what we were talking about before, because we were having a fantastic conversation. In fact, while I just put some comments up, would you mind telling everyone what we were talking about, Nikhil?
Sorry, say that again.
Before I get to the comments, would you mind just summing up what we were talking about, and I'll just see if there's any good comments.
You mean about the adaptation space?
Adaptation space, exactly.
Yeah. So basically, David and I were just, right before the chat began, we were kind of talking a little bit about the adaptation space, and just like how it's interesting seeing shows that kind of get canceled after season 1 or 2, and it's a little disheartening, because it's like we want the full story, and a lot of times, Netflix and Amazon and HBO, like, they all will do that, where they'll even sometimes have something filmed and they'll have spent, tens of millions of dollars on it, but they find it to be easier to cut it than to proceed with the marketing that would cost just as much, because it's usually 1-to-1. If you spend $100 million on a film, then you spend about $100 million on marketing. So it's pretty crazy to think about it that way. But I think the reason why, and this is what we were talking about earlier, is the music business was the first to fall in this respect. The movie business was always behind that. And we want to make sure the book business does not follow suit as well, like other entertainment forms. Is that, I don't consider the movie business, the traditional movie business, the same as it is now. And I don't even think the streaming business is going to be the same as it is now, like in another few years, because it is now more of a tech business with a movie arm, or tech business with a music arm, rather than a music business or a movie business. And so, from their standpoint, because we could look at it and go, that seems nonsensical. Why would you cut something a season in without giving it room to grow? The way a tech business would operate would be like, oh, that's exactly the right thing to do, because then we're diversifying in this way. From a creative standpoint, terrible idea, right? But from a tech standpoint, that's exactly what they do. So the tech motivations and the movie business motivations are going to be different. And if they don't align, there's a problem in a partnership, And I think that's the same thing with music. It's like, I think about just a little side tangent, but to illustrate the point even more, I think about the music business of 50 years ago. And at that time, yes, there were less radio stations, there was less ways of getting music, so you would have a much smaller subset of what music was created. However, that music was all vetted, and so what happened was it would go through, being discovered by an A&R executive, go through the record label machine, essentially, right? And they would link them up with the right producers, the right songwriters, whatever it was. And except they would give them 5-album deals and 7-album deals, because they knew they wouldn't even start making their money back on these artists until album 4.
Investment.
Because that's what, it's what it takes for an artist to grow. But then again, at that time, before they gave away their sense of agency to tech companies like Spotify, right? They had the physical media to fall back on. So all these music executives were riding around on private jets, right? It's not the same anymore, because if you lose your sense of agency, because the tech company wants the agency, music industry or the book industry or the any creative industry wants their own sense of agency, and they're going to be different. So
there's a comment here. I work in financial tech, and you're 100% on point, from Chris.
Oh yeah. It's an unfortunate truth.
It's disheartening was the word I think I used. We talked about this for, it must have been about 15 minutes, because I asked, I asked Chad, because I know you're kind of connected to the scene. I don't know how much you wanted to talk about it, but for me, it's a reason that I've stopped watching TV so much, because that you could watch something, a season 1 of something, and it'd be utterly brilliant. Like, I mean, this has existed since like Firefly, which was the example I used, but it feels like recently you're always throwing the dice when you start a show. Even if the show has, let's say, 3 seasons, you do not know if you're going to get an ending there. And I find it very upsetting. And I don't even know a better way to put it than just a sad state of affairs. Like, it's genuinely upsetting to think that is the way the world is these days, that you have a compelling story that doesn't get seen out because not enough people are watching it, even if the number of people watching it are hundreds of thousands. There's no kind of long-term plan, it feels like. I mean, maybe you'd know more than this than me, but it feels like it's the yearly bottom line is all that matters.
Yeah, it is very much more of a short-term gains kind of a thing, because it's, with the streaming wars, it's like, content, which I just am not a fan of that word in general, because it lumps everything into one thing. It's like, so is a tweet the same as a film? No, it's like, doesn't make any sense to me. But with the content is king ideology, then it's like everything can be content. So let's put out as much as we can and try to gain market share, right? And again, they're thinking like a tech business would, but ultimately that's not sustainable. So then, of course, suddenly the industry starts to contract. Now, I read a statistic that there were, this time, I think 2 years ago or 3 years ago, still tail end of the pandemic, right? And, at that time there was somewhere around 340 something writers' rooms going on in LA. And now there's something like 90,
Wow.
So that's a 75% drop or something like that. So that gives you an idea of where things are, and that trickles down to everything. So, I know of development executives that work at big studios that are now completely changing careers.
Yeah. I know we haven't even touched on books yet, which is fine. I think this is really interesting. But sorry, I just said this comment. There's 2 comments I want to just flag very quickly. First of all, Darius says this latest trend has also allowed for tightly scripted short series, which I think is a phenomenal point. I would say we already had those in Britain. I don't know about New Zealand, Derry, but I think those were already pretty more common in the UK, that we kind of already have 2 or 3 season things, and then we just wrap it up quickly. I think it's more of an American thing to have these massive series. Doctor Who maybe being one of the British exceptions.
Totally,
you have these long series, these sustained stories that something like the Wheel of Time kind of needs to do it justice. I think it's hard because I was just going to say that it's like making an 8-episode season becomes a very difficult prospect, because how can you combine all this stuff without doing some major cutting or changing logistical storylines and stuff, and even characters, like certain characters can't be represented the same way in TV as they can in the books, because frankly in the Wheel of Time there's characters that get sidelined for entire several books at a time. You couldn't sideline be like, I'll see you in 4 seasons, that's fine. No one's gonna do that.
And you can't sideline major actors like that. On
you have agents calling and things like that, I'm sure. Saying,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
So it's this weird balance, and then it's like, from a storytelling perspective, it's a butterfly effect, right? Because you change one minute thing, and it's going to have consequences later down the line. So I
yeah.
imagine it's difficult,
Right. I have a follow-up question for you. I do want to
Yeah.
address this. Okay, sometimes it's better to cancel and to switch Geralt, which is very funny. It's very funny. However,
Yeah.
that show should not have made it past season 1. I'm just going to cancel everything I just said and say that the fact The Witcher got a season 2, given the fact. Okay, listen, love Henry Cavill. I think we're talking about enthusiasm. Henry Cavill's enthusiasm is amazing.
Yeah.
He's brilliant. I love that man. I love that everything he does, and that he's nerdy and enthusiastic. That is a bad show, and it's a bad show from season 1. I'm sick of people saying, "Oh, it got really bad from season 3. It got really bad when they decided to throw." No, that show was rotten from the beginning. This weird kind of MTV like camera style. The special effects, I don't think were that great. Anyway, I hope no one has worked on The Witcher in the comments, but. I think that people have started to hate on that show long past the point where people should have started hating on that show. I think I had a very good pilot episode, and then went down the tubes immediately. I don't know if you've seen it, Nikhil.
Yeah, I've seen the first, I think just season 1. Maybe I saw season 2 as well, which was where Toss a Coin was in season 1, was it?
Yeah, season 1, episode 2 or 3. That's a good song. I love that song.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
My follow-up question for you though was about AI. I'm just while we're on the topic of like the industry and Hollywood and music. Are you finding that AI is sort of creeping in there? I mean, we see it from an educational perspective, but I'm aware this thing is floating through the world. And I'm curious to see to what extent it's beginning to kind of encroach on your turf, as it were.
It's hard to say because it's this weird inflection point. I mean, I really think that's like I'm not a catastrophizer about these things, but I also think it's important to see things as they are and not what you wish like they would or wouldn't be. And so I've been trying to really research it and understand where we're at day to day, because things are changing so fast that anything that feels like, oh, it will never get there, that it's asymptotic, right? That is not even necessarily relevant next week. So so I don't really know what it means for the industry. I think like there's certain companies that are putting their like foot down, like this is not the way we want to do things. If we do it, it might be for operational stuff but not for creative.
Yes.
And I think that's wonderful, and I would like that to be more prevalent. But I see new articles coming out about AI replacing voice actors or AI replacing VFX. There's a statistic saying that they're extrapolating by 2026, there'll be 20% less VFX jobs in general, I mean, that's like in not even 2 years, 1 year from now, right? And so even if I see it in the music industry as well, like just I'll look on YouTube because I like to try to find new albums to listen to while reading, and I find 60s folk artists all the time. I love that stuff. Sometimes it's hard to find like treasure trove of ones that just to the point of wasn't a mainstream release or anything, but the beautiful albums. And I heard one, I was like, oh, this is really good. And I looked at the track listing, and one of the tracks was like bonus track live in 1966. I clicked on it, I was like, oh, this is cool. And I saw the Bandcamp link to purchase the album, so I clicked on it, and I was like, I should look up this band, see what else they've done. I looked it up. The only thing I could find was the link back to that Bandcamp page, and then it dawned on me that whole thing was AI. And there's people making up bands that don't exist and making up tracks and albums that don't exist using AI, and then using AI to create whatever the songs are, and then restructuring them, whatever it is, and then selling albums and making it sound like they were a legit band that never existed. So that's where we're at today. So I think
sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I'm just saying this is so recent as well. This has only been a few years that AI has really become the epicenter of the conversation. But sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's all good. I mean, I like to think that just listening so critically to music for so many years and working on it for so many years, like I can usually tell when something is AI, But this was one that threw me for a loop. And I think like you look at all the comments and it says like, oh, this is the real music. I wish this kind of music would come back. And I'm like, oh God, what the heck is happening right now? So I really don't know. I mean, at the very least, at the moment, there's going to be a trickle down effect, because if VFX and stuff like that is going to be
Mhm.
relegated to AI, or any of these ancillary processes that are so important to movie making, or
Yeah.
TV making, or whatever it is, then it's going to have an effect on the industry as a whole, and for sure for music. And then, of course, there's the artistic component of it, like I was mentioning with these albums. So I don't know where it's going to go. I really don't know.
And
Um,
there's about 7 or 8 different questions there as well, isn't there? I mean, from my perspective, the reason I wanted to ask you about it is I was just watching your fabulous fabulous new video on Nikhil's channel, explaining how he kind of came about with the composing for The Hills of Tanchico, which is the song that was on season 3, episode 6.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Very good, of the Wheel of Time. Um, and kind of how you managed to make this thing in 5 or 6 hours. And I got to the stage before I had to come talk to you, where you had the editing room open, and that suite of digital, and a lot of them were kind of digital tools and things like that. And I'm sitting
Yeah.
there thinking, this guy has brilliantly made this in 5 or 6 hours, but is there a danger that 10 years down the line, unfortunately, because we see this in teaching as well, with various things, will there be an extent to which, I don't know, someone might go, can we try and replicate that? And so I'm happy to hear you're not a catastrophizer, but I am slightly catastrophic with AI.
Yeah, no, I find it hard not to be. But
Yeah,
I will say, here's one silver lining that I do feel, and
yeah,
this is going to all this is, it's going to stem from the idea of where IP and copyright, how much
yes,
value they have going forward. Because I know there's a lot of people in tech right now trying to dismantle the idea of copyright, both in the way it's talked about, like as if copyright is a privilege and not a right, and then also in terms of not being regulated. The
yeah,
so a lot of studios don't want to touch AI music because they don't know where it came from, what it was trained on, and if it was with or without consent, they don't want to deal with any legal battles. It's like that's like a lawsuit, waiting to happen, right? But
yeah,
and so as long as that's the case, then they may go, okay, we need, several hours of music for this game. And a composer might go, okay, cool. Well, all these processes that take me hours to do, like, hey, break all of what you've written into different instrument groups for various delivery platforms and this and that. You could
yeah,
press one button and have that done, rather than spend 8 hours doing those technical things that, like,
yes.
who wants to be sitting there just like waiting for the thing to render and then do the next one? And so that stuff I could see, okay, then people could make music faster, or
That's
whatever
how
it
it
is.
should be. Yeah,
That's how it
sorry.
should. Yeah.
It should be that the artificial intelligence streamlining the creative process that comes from humans.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, I think that's it. And I think that AI can have experimentation into the creative process, but it's always going to be artificial because
Hmm.
it lacks that spark. I don't know. I find it a really interesting conversation. I do worry a bit. I mean, my worry comes from the educational perspective, where you give
Mm.
kids an assignment, and then there's
Yeah.
always going to be 2 or 3 that have a go. And that's not even just saying kids are being whatever nasty or any different from they've been. It's just if listen, I use Google Translate for my French when I
Yeah.
was in school. And I knew that it was going to come out hot garbage, and I'd do it anyway just to see if I could. So I can't imagine the pressure these kids feel, especially these days when kids feel so much pressure to get A's, B's, whatever it is. And they know that the press of a button, they can have an immaculate essay or whatever written for them.
Yeah.
Of course, that's a temptation.
You
But
know, I
I'm
always think
seeing,
about,
yeah,
just to tie this back into books, I just think about this idea of like all these science fiction writers in the 40s and 50s, 30s through 50s, 60s, that
yeah,
wrote these dystopian novels, and how a lot of that stuff is starting to come true in real life now. And I always
yeah.
like think to myself, as kind of a cosmic joke, you know, would that have happened anyways, or did people who are now in positions of power in tech and stuff get the ideas from reading those books growing up? It's like, the sci-fi authors, but also amazing novels, but also how could you, you know?
Yeah. Have you read any Ian M. Banks?
Okay, so this is the second time I've heard of this author. I heard about him from Sam Not So Wise, who
Yeah.
is, I think it's his favorite author, and so I want to read The Algebraist at some point this year, but I haven't read any Ian M. Banks. Is that a good place to start, would you say? Or
So I've read no, I haven't read that one. He's got 3 standalone sci-fis. and that's not one of the ones I read. But you know about the culture, right?
Yes, I've heard of it. Yeah.
So the culture, it's a fabulous. So I'm mixed on Ian M. Banks. I think some of his stuff is wonderful, and some of his stuff is a bit. He tried because he's an ideas man, and he's sharply funny and he's very clever. But sometimes I find his ideas are great, and sometimes I think he gets carried away with his ideas. But when he's good, he's brilliant. But his futuristic world, AIs run the show. You know, it's I think it's set in the present day, but it's set in, you know, Earth does not, or it does exist, but Earth is not the what we're exploring here. It's a human-based culture. It's billions and billions and billions of people that are kind of spacefaring and live on various kind of spaceships, and they're called orbitals, like ring worlds. But AI have the run of the show, and so it leaves humans to pursue whatever they want to do, whether that is creativity or partying or exploration. They're just free to have that utopian joy, because everything has sort of been not even exported, because that sounds like humans originally had control. It is, the idea is that for thousands and thousands of years, the machines have taken care of things, and they also partake in the pleasure of living in a utopia. It's a really interesting world. I would say give it a go. I think books 2 and 3, they're all standalones. They're just like set in the same universe.
Oh, that's cool.
Books 2 and 3, The Player of Games, is fabulous, and book 3, Use of Weapons, is incredible. I have a first edition of that book that I found in Ireland a couple of years ago, and I bought it and I gave it to my aunt and I said, keep this safe. Keep it secret, keep it safe. it's that book. You know how you get that book every now and again that just makes your jaw hang on the floor by the end of it.
Oh yeah,
what it was like. So
I love hard concept sci-fi actually. Hey Jake, what's up, man?
We've been ignoring the chat. I don't know if you've noticed the chat's been doing very stuff for us.
Sorry,
yeah. They've been talking about Charlie Cox.
Oh, cool. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I'm just catching up now as well.
Yeah.
I have it on this other screen.
The Moomins. How do we get to the Moomins? The Moomins, though, is a really good example of something that could easily be created by AI. Like you could say, generate me a Moomins, whatever storybook, and it could do it. But would it have the heart?
True.
Yeah. I think Ian M. Banks would maybe say yes, but I mean that's different. Oh, we've got Philip Chase in the chat. Hi, Philip.
Hey, Philip.
Yay.
Yeah.
I have a game for you. I don't know if you saw. We're going to leave it 10 more minutes. I say game. It's very, very slight. But I did want to talk about books with you. I realized I haven't yet asked you what you're actually reading, which is egregious of me, Nikhil.
No. It's all good. Yeah. I'm kind of so I'm reading The Devils by Joe Abercrombie right now. I'm like 40%, I think, in. Have you read it, by the way?
No, and I'm fiercely jealous of you. So tell me how it is.
So I think people have very different opinions on this book. So far, I'm really enjoying it. I will say the prose I actually liked a little bit more in the First Law universe so far. And, I'm just going to keep it spoiler free and high level, but basically there's a lot more humor in this book. And actually, I love Joe Abercrombie's humor, but there's a lot more of a humorous banter back and forth than in his previous works. And I almost feel like he had, for me, a better balance in the humor and also the kind of seriousness of the situation in the First Law universe. Okay. Than in the Devils, but that may be people's cup of tea. So I feel like if people like that, it's almost got almost like a Monty Python level of humor at times, which I love, but I just wasn't expecting it in this book. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. But
he's always been a bit Tarantino, hasn't he?
Sorry?
He's always been a bit Tarantino, hasn't he?
Yeah,
He's the writerly Tarantino is how I describe him to people.
Totally.
It sounds like he's maybe notched things up a bit more than previous.
That's what it seems to me. Yeah. Now I've only read and have you read the entire First Law universe?
Yes, I've not read the Shattered Sea, but I have read the First Law.
The First Law.
The Heroes is the best one. That's my take.
Is that your favorite one?
The Heroes, yeah.
The Heroes, nice. For me, so far, it's best served cold, but we will see. Because I've only read up to the Heroes, actually. And I really did enjoy the Heroes. But
it's that, and again, keeping it spoiler-free, there's a chapter halfway through the book with points of views. And that's all I'll say. Again, talking about books that had your jaw on the floor.
Yeah. That's brilliant. It's brilliant. Yeah.
Would you say that the comedy in The Devils takes away from the piece, would be the question so far?
So it's funny because on my Discord, like we were just chatting about that this morning, and like there's some people who feel like the comedy adds to the story, and they're Joe Abercrombie fans through and through, so they really have read a lot of his works and stuff. For me personally, I felt like it might be a little too much for me. Yeah, it's like when the humor, it it almost takes away the stakes a little bit,
Yes.
if that makes sense. That's how I've been feeling so far. But then again, only 40% in, so there's still a whole more than half the book to go. So we'll see.
Right.
We'll see how I feel at the end. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. Not that I'm not enjoying it, but I do feel that I kind of wish he would dig in a little bit more, like how he did in First Law.
One thing I think that is quite interesting about Joe Abercrombie is how he talks about writing. I really do appreciate it, as someone who doesn't write. But often you kind of hear writers talk about the fact that they just sort of do their magic wand hand movements, and suddenly they've drafted this brilliant, complete set of texts that they hand off to their publisher. And I love that Joe Abercrombie, whenever he talks about writing, talks about what a chore it is.
Yeah.
It's like, I hate it. It's like the first draft is not going well. And I don't know if it's just that kind of Englishman kind of being a bit sarcastic, but I think there is some truth to it, that we do see his wild success, but there is a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that he's very upfront about. I very much appreciate.
I love it, because I've seen his interviews as well. I love hearing him speak about his craft and his process, and it's like, I think it's important for more people to talk about that, because we do see the highlight reels, and I always think of it like the creative process is what the audience sees is the Wizard of Oz, and what we see is that frantic old guy pushing the levers in the background. That's what I feel like most of the time. So
have you ever written anything?
I've only written like short stories. I actually used to love creative writing in high school and stuff like that, and kind of fell off of it. I've always wanted to get back into it. It's just figuring out how to carve time out. But I think it would be my dream to one day, not necessarily to, as an ambition to like, I really want to like make the next great blah 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 novel or whatever, but just to have done one. I would love to write one day. Yeah.
I love that so many people on BookTube are kind of quite open about making their own stories as well. It kind of becomes this sort of thing that we all, almost like a campfire thing, if that doesn't sound patronising, that we're all happy sharing our stuff with each other and enjoying each other and appreciating each other.
It's so cool. I mean, I also think of, J.A.J. Minton's Discovery just came out, I think, yesterday.
I want to read it,
I want to read that so badly. And, and just hearing everything I've heard about it has been amazing. And, of course, Philip Chase, his amazing Edan trilogy, and then I think of Brian Lee Durfee's Five Warrior Angel trilogy. And it's like, it's so cool to see people who read so widely and are like really introspective with what they read. Like Brian Lee Durfee reads a book a day, which is insane to me still. And then Philip Chase is just so widely read in fantasy, and he has such introspective things to talk about, like philosophical things in fantasy, and it imbues itself into the writing, and you can tell because like both their prose is just amazing, and you could see like, oh, these are people who not only love writing but appreciate the craft of putting together a story because they're fans of stories themselves. Like it's cool to see that, getting to know them and then getting to see what they're interested in and getting to see that filtered through what they write. That's
especially Philip, whose story, I mean, I've only read Way of Edan, but the whole thing is just drenched in, I mean, I think it's on the cover, isn't it? Drenched in love of the story. The whole thing is about storytelling. So, and one thing I always love about authors as well is ever getting the chance to see their bookshelf behind the scenes. Whenever authors, I think Joe Abercrombie is a good example of this. Like when he did a bookshelf tour, I was like this. I was watching. So curious. I'm so grateful to the authors that are upfront about this, that will talk about the fact that they should, they are drawing influence either accidentally or consciously from the stuff that they have read. I think it's really cool. It's this kind of big ongoing braided narrative of narratives, if that doesn't sound way too pretentious. Just going to put this, just going to look at the chat really quickly.
Oh, thanks, Philip. That means the world to me, man. It was.
Sorry, on you go.
I was just going to say it was so much fun working together on the Edan main theme. And yeah, it's just like I couldn't have asked for a better collaboration. That was just like a blast.
And then Discovery arrived to my Kindle last night. I have never had so much FOMO for a book. I almost bought the sign. I bought way too many books. I think when I get back to Scotland, I'm going to do some kind of book haul of all the packages that are waiting for me. And I almost bought Discovery, like the signed ones coming. I'm like, I just can't, because the shipping was like thrice what the book cost. And
oh my god, yeah. I have we have this library that's literally 2 blocks away, so walking distance, and they have these monthly book sales, and it is so tough. So the other day I walked in last weekend, and I walked in with the intention of maybe picking up one thing, and I walked out with 8, and it was
You do
like
the shorts, right? The shorts that you
the
show for
short,
your
yeah,
hauls.
yeah,
I love
yeah,
those, yeah.
yeah, and it's like it was only $6 and something, for like 8 pristine hardcovers. Like I can't say no, but then
Yeah.
I have now, and I don't know if it's the same for you, David. Like I have books everywhere. It's like I have my shelves are all full. We need to get another shelf to house some of these because they're like stacks on the ground now, and it's just like, oh my god, it's gonna be like one of those episodes of that show Hoarders. It's like,
Yeah. I need to get better at unhauling. I've been kept by the fact that I've moved country quite a lot. But I
yeah.
think my house 15 years from now is going to be just. I mean, it's probably going to be in Japan is the issue. My next house. So the issue is going to be there's no space in Japanese houses, but it's a challenge. It really is. One thing I really love. I know it exists in the UK. I know it's not an American thing, but I've encountered it most in the States, which is the community library boxes. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh,
Chris,
yes, like the little free library.
like little birdhouses that you open,
Yeah,
you take a book, and you're supposed to put a book back. Well, this is the issue, right? Is that when I'm in the States, it's usually to visit family, my wife's family, so I don't have many books on me. So I walk past these little books that say not buy one, take one, give one.
yeah.
And I'm always looking at them like, I cannot just take a book. I cannot just take a book. That is horrible. So I have to go out to my mother-in-law's house and be like, Trisha, do you have any books that you're not particularly looking forward to read? So
That's nice.
yeah. But yeah, I love that getting books from different places because Amazon is Amazon, isn't it? And,
Yeah.
and I've had real challenges this year in trying to get books together and have. I'm interested in kind of curating a little collection, a little library in the future. I love your little ones that you have in your apartment.
I think about that a lot. The idea of like, purchasing the latest, greatest editions, which there's so many great ones, like the Broken Binding, of course. And, I have the Malazan ones here, those first 3, and gorgeous editions. And then, of course, the ones that you would get like trade paperbacks or hardcovers that you would typically get from an Amazon or Barnes and Noble. And, it makes your shelf feel more homogenous, like everything is kind of nicely in its place, like all the spines match, whatever it is. And I love that aspect of it. But lately, just because of it's just financially much easier to go and discover something at these library book sales and then suddenly walk out with like authors that you've been meaning to check out and stuff. But oftentimes those are like first edition ones or like book club editions. Yep. The spines are not going to match and stuff. But I found that there's an equal charm to getting those actually, because you can see like, I don't know, there's something about a book that's a little older. It has a quality to it. It's like almost I don't know how to describe it, but it feels unique.
I love when you get annotations, someone's annotations in a book.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I love put pen on paper, especially when I was in Japan the first time. You go into these used bookshops, and a lot of the books would be people trying to study their English. So usually it's the first 30 pages and not the last 370 pages. But the first 30 pages are filled with people like circling vocabulary words, and it feels like a living text. Yeah, so I totally agree with what you're saying.
Yeah,
right. Are you ready for the game?
Yeah. Oh yeah, let's do it. Lay it on me.
Welcome to Would You Rather with Captain Nikhil. Okay. I asked a few friends.
I have no idea where this is going, and I'm here for it.
Are you familiar? Right. I say game, right? I'm very much when I was still coming out of my my sickness, I was like, right, I need to say something intelligent, and I thought I'd make this. And you know what? I reached out to a few friends. Said, do you have any Would You Rather question? And I thought, you know what? Let's just make this a section on today's live stream, just for you. Right. Are you familiar with the game Would You Rather?
Is it like you choose between one thing or the other?
That's exactly what it is. It's that simple. You have to choose option A or option B. So I've asked a few different people. Chris, who's there, asked Joanna, asked a couple other people. Can you give me some interesting Would You Rather connected to books or BookTube? Okay, or in some way connected to Nikhil as well. Okay.
Interesting. So awesome.
I've got 15 to 20 people in the chat. Yeah. Would you please either give your own opinion if you're there, or you could also maybe just give your own Would You Rathers for Nikhil, and we'll just see how it goes. I am also, by the way, just very quickly, very jealous of anyone who meets Joe Abercrombie because, although he's so smart and so funny that I think I just fall to pieces. So, you ready? Are you ready for this?
Yes.
The only thing is that you have to give your answer and then you have to rationalize your answer. You have to explain why.
Okay.
Cool?
All right.
Right.
Cool.
Right. Let's start with a pretty silly one. Would you rather read War and Peace on an old Nokia phone, like one of the ones that played Snake,
Okay.
or on a very long CVS receipt?
I am always partial to tangible things. So the CVS receipt is for me.
Okay. You know what? There's something quite nice about having like an endless tapestry of
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
one of those like, oh, I'm just going to deliver a short speech, and then they have the whole,
Okay.
falls to the
That's
ground.
an easy one. Okay. How about this one? This is a better one, I think. You ready?
Okay, yeah.
For the rest of your life, only read standalones or only read series that have more than one entry.
That have more than one entry. Ah.
So stuff like The Wheel of Time, or stuff like, I don't know, Discovery. I think Discovery might have a sequel. The Road by Cormac McCarthy, for example.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm just such a fan of long form series. I think just because of The Wheel of Time, The Dark Tower. So I love it when you can really get into characters and see arcs over a longer period of time. So if I had to choose, it would probably be series. I might go insane doing it, but it's worth the gamble.
So I see what you're saying, and I think everyone else is saying series. Everyone is saying series.
Really?
However,
Yeah.
if I could maybe swivel some people away, I think I would say standalones. And the reason is simply, okay, I'm going to fight you all. No, you're all wrong, and here's why you're all wrong. Okay? Is that the best, not the best fantasy works, but the best works, because we're talking about reading in general. It seems to me like all the best, like top canonical, and I use that word very broadly, works seem to be standalone. Like those are the ones that tend to stand the test of time. Some exceptions, Lord of the Rings. Well, I guess Lord of the Rings could kind of count as a standalone because the publisher chopped that up, didn't they? Right. I get Lord of the Rings. But there is that sense at which the books that tend to last 1,000 years or 100 years are the ones that are singles.
Interesting. I never thought of it that way before, and now I think about it, Stephen King's like my favorite author, and he is the king of standalones in a lot of ways. But I will say this: here's an alternate point of view on that. Is maybe the standalones stand the test of time because people typically don't read long form series in the like the majority of readers, right? They're more casual about how they read, and so they would prefer to pick up one rather than many more. And so just from the popularity, it's possible that the standalones just ended up being more in the cultural consciousness than series. That's just a thought.
No, and Derry's just saying I don't know that series were a thing in the past, which I think is totally fair. I mean, I think they were, but not to the same extent. I guess it was more like serials and newspapers and things like that, wasn't it?
That's a good point. Yeah,
and Derry's just said that, and she's very angry with me, I think. Sorry, Derry. I can't cancel Hobb, can I? We'll just bind Robin Hobb into one massive book.
Exactly.
You just finished Ship of Magic, is that right?
Yes, oh god, I loved it. It was so good. I'm like, I cannot wait to start Mad Ship. Yeah. I'm gonna check with Ellie from Bibbidi Bobbidi Books. We're doing like a buddy read together, and so I'm gonna see when she wants to start that. But it's gonna be a fantasy frenzy, I think, in June. I just get this feeling.
What was I gonna say? Tawny Man, the next Robin Hobb trilogy, was my favorite so far.
Was it? Yeah, I've heard so many people say that. Yeah.
I don't know if Philip's still here, but I think he told me as well that Tawny Man for him was the top. Oh. So you've got treats coming.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm even excited about Rainwild, which I've heard is one of the weaker ones, or has a bit more of a polarizing viewpoint. But everything I've heard about the Rainwild, just from live ship so far, has made me very intrigued.
So what Derry said to me was that Rainwilds was and Derry, correct me if you think I'm wrong here, that Rainwilds was a victim of its publishing because it came out when young adult stuff was at a frenzy. And so the people marketing it aimed it at young adults.
I see.
And actually, and that's why some of the stuff feels a bit skewed younger, which is why some people found it not distasteful, but lesser. But apparently, Derry also told me that people who Derry, I listen. People who read Rainwilds first are the people who actually really like it. So
okay, yeah.
Right, but let's move on.
All right, cool.
I have a lot of these. Right. This is a good one. Would you rather have your mind blown by a book or heart broken by a book?
Oh, mind blown, definitely. I think my favorite series have been kind of like that. Like Dark Tower is definitely one of them. and what's it called? Remembrance of Earth's Past. If we're looking at sci-fi,
Yes. What a
so
good example.
freaking amazing.
Best example of mind blown.
Right? Yeah. Oh yeah. So like for me, that's always been very interesting to me. So that was it. That was a very easy one for me to choose between.
Do you know the way I describe The Dark Forest to people is that book made me go for a walk every 50 pages.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Like, I'm not even sure I like the writing style of The Dark Forest because the translation was so blunt and sharp, and I believe that's how he actually writes Cixin Liu. But I was just like, what? Like genuinely, like some life-changing realization or plot device. Just
oh yeah.
And yeah, I think I would still go for it Heartbroken. You know,
you would.
I think so.
Yeah.
Oh, we
That's
didn't
fair.
talk about. Sorry, I don't mean to cut again, but I was just thinking we haven't talked about the thumbnail yet, have we? Did you like the thumbnail?
Right. I love your play on words, man.
So I was a bit worried. I sent it to Nikhil and I'm like, listen, I sent you two things. I'm like, listen, we don't have to do the Hills of Tanchico for the title. I'm like, up to you. And he was like, yeah, it's fine. And the other thing I said, look, the thumbnail, it kind of seems like we're peeing. All things surf the stream. And I'm like, do we want that up there in perpetuity? All things surf the stream. And then us two standing there in a field. Like
the funny part about that too is I didn't even realize until you mentioned it. And then once you did, now I can't unsee it. Like every time I would see the thumbnail, I'd be cackling here, you know.
Right. Next one for you. You ready? This is a good one. This doesn't apply to music. It applies to YouTube and it applies to audiobooks. If you were to audiobook something, 1.5 speed or 0.75 speed.
It's hard to, I guess I would say I would default to 1.5 speed, but it would depend on, I would say, if I had to choose between making it slower, because usually I feel like when I listen to audiobooks, it feels a little bit too slow, even at regular speed. So I would say, 1.5. But not that I'm going to understand all the characters and the world building, but, you know, maybe it's actually more long-winded that way. I don't know.
I sometimes wonder if audiobook narrators are conscious in these days, because I find that audiobooks these days are a lot more slow than they used to sound. And I wonder if that's because they're aware that people speed up a little bit. I could be totally wrong. But see, when I listen to an audiobook that's released in the last 2 years, it feels much slower. And that could be because of what I just said, or it could be because that I can't stop listening to them at 1.5 and I've just gotten used to 1.5.
I was thinking about that too. Yeah, maybe it's that. It could even be, and I wonder if this is like a thing that they've calculated that people get the most immersed if it's a specific speed. And they've kind of like calibrated the cadences of the words to that. I don't know. I'm not.
You know what it was for me? It was going running. When I started jogging during COVID, and I was just like, I don't like listening to music. I want something to abstract me from my misery. So I just Dresden, and that's how I kind of just listen to.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Right. Next one. This is a good one. This was one of mine. I'm proud of this one. You can only buy damaged books, like showing significant wear, shall we say, or physical books with movie poster covers.
Damaged books, definitely.
Yeah.
I just love I like those first edition ones with the worn spines or whatever. Like, I just love the way some of that artwork looks. It's like when people would make paintings for the thing, and I just feel like that's some of my favorite stuff actually. And sometimes I'll even opt for that rather than a brand new one without the movie poster cover.
The movie poster cover. Who buys those? I don't understand. There must be some marketing success.
Yeah.
But who buys those? Who goes, yes, that is the cover I want? Because surely any rational human being, given the chance, wouldn't choose the book with flipping like Danny DeVito on the cover. No offense, Danny, I love it. But whoever, like George Clooney, whoever, Sandra Bullock, whoever, like who would take the random A-list actor over like an original piece of art? It boggles my mind. I don't get it.
I think also like our reading community is people who are like avid readers. And I get the feeling the people who read 1 or 2 books a year, or like, hey, I want a book for the plain summer beach read or whatever. They're probably less concerned about that stuff. And then also, I think about the subliminal advertising aspect of things. It's like, it's not even them picking it up. But if if most copies in a bookstore have that movie poster cover, then maybe more people will go see the movie. It's like this cross-pollination of marketing. So I assume that's what it is, even if it annoys us to no end. But
you just solved that for me. I hadn't even thought about the fact that more about the movie, isn't it? Right. This is from Chris, who's in the
Oh, cool.
comments.
Yeah.
This is a really good one. It's a bit dark. Would you rather be stuck reading would you rather be stuck reading nothing but kind of smutty romance for the rest of your life? Or you can read anything you want, but you get a paper cut every time you start a new chapter?
I would make sure I have some Band-Aids handy and some, alcohol and rubbing alcohol to specify. Some whiskey,
Yeah.
and go for the paper cuts, because
Yeah.
I don't think I could read smutty fantasy and stuff that much.
I think the reason that Chris says it is he has a new series on his channel where it's called Man versus Smut, I believe, Chris. So correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, really?
He reads all these books for give me that smut, says Jake. I'll make that the thumbnail. Okay. Yeah, I agree. But I think ultimately the question is, would you rather read with pain or not read at all? Is how I kind of read that question.
Yeah.
Listen, if you're into romantasy, fine.
Yeah.
But for me, it's not my thing. So the question is either would I rather read nothing or read and have a bit of pain? I think you're right. The answer is
Totally.
Yeah.
It's like
the tools you need to survive.
I've been experiencing psychological pain reading some of these Mao's Ed chapters, and also books like Girl Next Door and like horror books, disturbing books, and that's still better. It's like pain, whether it be physical or psychological. It's a physical manifestation of psychological pain.
But I do draw your attention to what Chris is saying here, which is that he initially did say every time you turn a page.
Oh, turn a page. Oh, that does change things.
And then
but maybe I would still just keep, an extra bottle of rubbing alcohol.
The solution can't always be alcohol, Nikhil. Just
I like that solution, pun intended. Yeah.
Yeah, true. Right. This is a good one. These are a couple of BookTube ones. Are you ready?
All right. Yeah.
Your next video has to be dodgy audio, like crackly fiberglass audio, or 240p.
By Hobby Vomit. God, that's hard to say. Okay, I will say probably the 240p, as much as it sucks and it would like grate on me like nails on a chalkboard. But I would say like so many people are listening to stuff in the background while they're doing other stuff. So I would rather that their listening experience be good. And as an audiophile myself, I just would have such a hard time with crackling audio. I just wouldn't be able to do it. I couldn't do it to myself, let alone to anyone else.
The only video I deleted on my channel was there was an audio issue where it was only one earphone. And so that was when I had to like take down, spend ages kind of trying to work on and then put it back up. So yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But there's something about audio when it's crackly. It's a bit more upsetting than something visual, I think.
It's actually a thing in films. They always say, like, if you're going to invest in, in indie filmmaking and stuff, they say if you're going to invest anything, make sure you have good on-location sound. Because the one thing that actually, the way brains process sound and visuals, is they'll realize the sound actually like a few milliseconds first before the visuals. And so it's like they're going to know if it's not up to a particular standard by the sound first, actually. And so your eyes can be sometimes a little bit more forgiving with certain visuals. Maybe not 240p, but
we're all the cracked iPhone generation anyway, aren't we?
Exactly. Yeah, that's true.
It doesn't seem to matter as much to us. I find that when I'm recording YouTube, because I have to film a lot of my stuff outside, just because I have nowhere to go, and it's the thing that I'm always terrified of. It's like, how is the audio going to sound? Because you don't know until it's over.
I know.
Darius saying Sorry, on you go.
Oh no, I was gonna say I've always wanted to like record in a nice like nature walk or something like that sometime. Maybe I might get one of those portable mics that like I know Joanna has, and her audio sounds amazing when she's outside, in her backyard or wherever it is that she does. And I would love to get one of those just so I could do one of those like, hey, let's do a nature walk and talk. That would be kind of fun.
I'm really excited in Japan to be like shooting a bunch of B-roll of like temples and stuff. Like, cause I quite enjoy like doing that. I think now in my videos, just like first 30 seconds, just different clips. Temples will be easier than kind of Middle Eastern kind of dusty streets. But
I like that good audio with the Stardew Valley Nikhil.
Right. This is a good one. This is a similar one, but I twisted it slightly.
Cool.
All your videos are 480p, or all your thumbnails or a picture of you from your awkward teenage years?
Man, that's a tough one.
That's one of mine. I was
Probably
proud of
it would probably be I would probably be unrecognizable because I didn't even grow my hair out until I was 20. I had like a buzz cut.
Mhm.
And so probably people wouldn't even know it's me if I had thumbnails. But if it was a better thumbnail, maybe people would click on the video. It's tough. It's a tough
Yeah.
one. It's a maybe I'd probably say the 480p.
Okay. 480p is manageable.
Yeah.
Having bad data.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess the question is, does the thumbnail just a picture of you from your awkward teenage years, or are you allowed to add like a banner and
That changes everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. This is an interesting one. Another booktube one, then we'll go back to books. Your channel is now limited. You can only post videos or do live streams.
That might be the toughest question yet, actually,
Yep.
because one of my favorite things about BookTube is this.
We both do a lot of both. I've noticed.
Yeah.
And Jake, I think, is quite similar. He's like a 50-50 guy.
Totally.
And Jake's immediately said only live streams. Derry as well. I think Derry's a big live stream person. So
yeah. That's awesome. Gosh, I probably would do the live stream, actually. I would go with the live stream if I had to choose between the two, because I really just love this conversation. You know, this is my favorite kind of stuff to do. So if I had to choose, I would just make like my reading wrap-ups a live stream. You know, maybe make a weekly update a live stream and get a chance to just chat more and create a dialogue about it. That could be kind of cool. So maybe the videos could stay similar, but the formatting changes.
You've got and then you keep the conversations. And I would agree. I think the conversations are what are necessary. I think who was I speaking? Maybe it was Shay. Shamey, let me know if it was with you, man. We were talking about sort of how we're getting positive feelings from BookTube, and I said, I think I would feel quite down if it was still just me making videos into the void. Not because I wasn't making it, and it's not even about comments or anything like that. I could, even if I was a very successful booktuber, let's say 10,000, 20,000 subscribers, I would still feel like something was missing if it was just me posting and then comments. I think just said this is the heart of it, which was unexpected for me. I wasn't expecting to do kind of live streams and things like that.
Actually, same. I didn't really even know what to expect, honestly. It was like I thought I'd post a few videos and see how it goes. But this has become one of my favorite things because it's like we all get to hang out together. You know, like we started off through the love of books, but then we've all kind of gotten friendships through this thing. So, yes, exactly.
How do we do it these days? A little heart. There we go. Right. Okay.
Exactly.
Would you rather? Right. I've got about 6 or 7. If anyone has any good ones, you can post them in the chat.
Yeah.
We'll do some book ones. Would you only read 400 plus page books or under 400 page books?
400 plus. I think just with the chunky fantasy and sci-fi that I love to read, I think that would probably be the ticket for me. I also feel like oftentimes that kind of is the 400 page especially is the sweet spot, 400 to 500, where I get like a lot of the characters that I like.
Yes.
And also, man, historical fiction. I feel like that whole genre is like 1,000 pages and more. So I need some historical fiction in my life,
What if it was 600? If that was the limit?
That makes it much harder, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Because that's like, what do you have? You've got most Stephen King books under 600, except the Stand, It, Under the Dome.
Yeah.
All of Terry Pratchett, stuff like that, but you don't have like Ken Follett.
Right. You don't have Ken Follett. You don't have Stephen Erickson.
You don't have Philip.
Yeah.
You would go this way. I'm just trying to think of the authors we know.
Right, I know.
A lot of series sound
Brian Lee
smart.
Durfee. Wouldn't have Brian Lee Durfee.
Yep. I'd say under.
You would do under?
I do under at 600. I do over at 400, but I do under at 600.
I think, man, just based on what I've been enjoying lately, I think I would have to do over. It's just there's too many good ones and too many. I think it's like I've read a ton under 600 that I loved, but there's so many that I want to read that I haven't read yet that are over 600. So I think that's where I'm at right now.
You could never read Discovery.
That is true.
Just read it 3 times, then it's 600.
Yeah. or I'll just wait till the omnibus comes out.
Yeah. Yeah. This is one from the chat. Would you rather compose a legendary score and nothing else, or compose a score for the year's biggest flop every year? That's a good one. I like that.
That's pretty good,
That's a
actually.
really good one.
Oh,
What films have flopped lately?
Huh?
What films have flopped lately? I'm trying to imagine what scores you would do. The original Suicide Squad that everyone hated, that kind of
Oh
stuff.
yeah, that's right. Or the new Snow White,
Cats.
maybe.
Well, I guess Cats has a musical, doesn't it?
Yeah. And Cats also had the movie.
Yep.
And then the new Snow White, I guess. I would say probably a legendary score and nothing else. It's like if I was like, I'm trying to think of even what would be a composer that one could even equate that to. I don't know, but I think there's something about like going, I put my best foot forward. I gave everything I had to this thing,
Yes.
and I like that idea. Yes, the legacy aspect of it is very enticing. Of course, like we all want our creative expressions to live on. But I will also say, like, the other aspect of it that's even more enticing to me is I gave it everything I got. There was no stone left unturned. That feeling is a great feeling. It's a very fulfilled feeling. So I would probably say the one and done.
Do you know what I find very interesting about music? I feel like you're always 5 notes away from a masterpiece, and it's so hard to find. Like,
way to put it.
That's all you need. You just need your da. That's all you need.
That's it. Yeah.
That's it. Like, but
right. Yeah.
Anyway,
It's
but I know it's more than that, really. But yeah,
it's actually interesting. I don't know if not to spoil John Williams in Star Wars for anybody, but have you ever heard of the score for King's Row? It was like a 1933 film. I forget the composer. It might have been Korngold or Max Steiner, maybe. But if you listen to it, it's like, I swear this is true. You can hear it after the stream, but it goes dun 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 dun. It's like, come on, man, this is like too close. And then it goes off in another direction. But it's just like, wow, it's just. So there's your 5 notes right there.
That's a good one. Yeah, I really. Music is just something that's so interesting when it's connected to film, because like often I think it's the thing that viewers miss the most. Like they don't realize it's impacting them. I think that's that. I mean, I'm talking to someone who obviously knows this, but when you're watching the scene and you don't realize that the music is sort of not manipulating your emotions, but crafting your emotions. If it's done well, you do not know that's happening, and that's such a difficult needle to thread, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and especially in fantasy, I think, because like you think about Howard Shore's incredible score for the Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
You would know when those themes came in because they would announce themselves, but at the same time, you'd feel what it wanted you to feel.
Yeah,
and that's why that score is so brilliant. Is it could be listened to standalone, and be like, oh, I would just listen to this without even knowing what the film is, and it could be in the context of the scene. I think the same thing about a lot of John Williams works.
Yes,
it's like. You listen to the Home Alone score. It's a perfect example, actually, and lesser thought about. But it's like, when Kevin and his mother reunite at the end of the film, and the music, the big theme comes in and everything, and it's like, God. But it's an incredible piece of music. But in the context of that scene, it's just like heartrending.
Yeah, that was a really good one.
Yeah,
and there we go.
That was a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay. This goes back to our earlier conversation.
Sweet.
Would you rather read a series with a bad... I think To Ramble did this lately. Would you rather read a series with a bad ending or a series that remains unfinished? I think they discussed that. I saw a thumbnail.
I think it depends on the series. Like if it was a Song of Ice and Fire, definitely a series that is not unfinished because it's worth the ride anyways.
Yes.
Bad ending... depends on the bad ending. Like, is it an ending that not only is just like, I wish that it ended differently, or that it takes away from the story as a whole,
That's a good point. Let's have a frame of reference here. So I think maybe actually trying to keep it spoiler free, Game of Thrones Song of Ice and Fire is basically the typification of this. So you've seen Game of Thrones to the end?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Okay, so you will know that at the end of season 5, or roughly, is where the books have stopped.
Yep.
And those last 3 seasons where the end. Let's call them the end. Is it
Yeah.
better to have that? Is it better to have loved and lost? I don't know. I'll go first if you like. I think it's better to finish it.
Yeah.
I think that's just, there's a part of me that's quite a completionist.
No, I agree. Actually,
Yeah.
I agree. And
I'd rather see it
hey,
through.
how are you? Good to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually agree. I think this is a side tangent, but related to that Game of Thrones thing. I actually thought that season 8, you know, whatever happened in season 8, like the major plot points, you know, especially in that like latter half of the season, basically 3 episodes or whatever it was, if they'd spread that out over 3 seasons,
Yeah.
it could have been brilliant.
Do you know why I just did this? I remember the line, "Who has a better story?" That line, and I just, yeah. But everything else I would agree with. Do you know what?
It could have been poetic. I think it could have been poetic. It could have been, it's not the ending we wanted, but maybe it's the ending it needed. You know, there's a whole thing it could have done. I think if it had been done the right way, but it just, yeah, they rushed everything so much that there was no way for that to happen.
There was one character in Game of Thrones season 8 who I disagree with, who I think they just did dirty. No, there's a few actually. But there's one character, without spoiling anything for anyone who hasn't watched it, but if you haven't watched it, maybe don't, although that kind of belies what I'm trying to say. It's better finished. There's one character who didn't just kind of wither away and become a shell of themselves. There's one character who flipped, who reverted. And that really irritated me. That this one character basically just threw all their character development under the bus and went back to 6 years ago. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about.
100%. Yeah.
But that one irritated me. But I do agree that actually everything that was there could have, if given the space. Yeah.
And they could have played with that idea too. The idea of like, is everyone meant to be redeemed? Is everyone meant to be, you know, in real life, there are people who regress actually. You know, and they could have done this very poetically. Like they could have foreshadowed things, you know, really make it like a nicely woven story where it would be easier to believe that, because it's like, it's not what we wanted, but I respect it. Like you could have gotten there, but it was very crassly done, you know.
Joe Abercrombie is the master at that. He is so good at getting students. I'm just getting my teacher mode now. So good at getting the characters almost to the point where they progress, and then having them fall all the way back to the beginning.
Yep. Oh yeah.
All of his characters do that. I can't think of a single character. Oh, there's one. Like, I can't think of any character who decides to push through and progress. They always fall back into their old ways.
Right. Yeah.
I've got a few more if you're still down.
Yeah, please.
Would you rather read about a character you deeply relate to, or read about characters who are different from you but still interesting? Would you rather have that proximal experience or that encounter a new perspective experience, I guess?
Probably encounter a new perspective experience. I think that's like one thing I've really enjoyed about Malazan actually. And because you really see characters like from people who are at the forefront of things and some people who are kind of more observers or on like the foot soldiers and, you know, all the way up the chain. And certain ones, it's like, I wouldn't act that way in this particular situation. But getting to understand why they would makes you broaden your worldview and kind of understand a little bit more about like people. I think I'm always very curious about other people's way of life and stuff. So I think for me that's always been interesting, and I actually don't mind disagreeing with the characters' choices. You know, I don't know. How about for you?
I think Malazan's a really good example of that. Allowing you to see through. I mean, that's what books are kind of about, right? Like seeing through the lens of someone else's experience, whether that's the authors or kind of set of characters. So I kind of say it has to be the latter. I do enjoy stories that allow me to kind of have some introspection about myself, but it feels a bit, I don't know, self-indulgent if you're just doing it as a means of seeing yourself on the page. I mean, a lot of authors get flack for that, right? Patrick Rothfuss gets a lot of flack for basically seeming to be an idealized version of himself on the page, and you know, all these books where the main character is kind of a witty, handsome 20-something guy, and you're kind of like, there's maybe some comment going on here. So
I would say actually, you know, it's like the whole introspective idea. I would say even seeing characters you wouldn't agree with shines a light on. It's like, you know, there's certain things that might irk one about people in real life, and then also in the characters in these stories. And it's also because there's a bit of us in those characters, whether we like it or not. And
Yes.
there's that to contend with. We're also seeing a mirror into an alternate side of ourselves through these characters. So it does force, I think, one to be introspective, anyways.
Yeah.
By seeing people who are not like us at all, seemingly.
I think there's I don't want to get too much into live ships, so we'll keep it spoiler free, but I think
Yeah.
this is a really good example of this, where all the characters, right? Okay, I'll be honest. Live ships is my least favorite of the 3 trilogies. I still really, really, really liked it, but
Yeah.
for me, it's bottom of the 3 because all the characters, a lot of the characters irritate me, or none of them grabbed me in the same way that that first trilogy did.
Mm-hmm.
However, all of those characters you can kind of see yourself in a little bit, can't you?
Yeah, 100%.
And well, maybe there's 1 or 2 characters that are so embittered, but the main cast of Live Ship Traders, you can see yourself in each of them. So oh my goodness, I'm blanking on the woman protagonist's first name.
Althea.
Althea, yeah. Now, you can definitely see yourself in Althea, especially because she's young
Sure.
and she's ready to kind of start herself, but she's also a little bit ambitious and a little bit kind of cocksure what's going to happen. Then you have Brashen. You can totally see yourself in Brashen. But even Malta, like I think everyone can kind of see themselves in Malta a little bit, kind of knowing how the world works, all that kind of stuff.
Well, it's like whether it's a irredeemable aspect of a person, or even, oh, this person actually has more dimension than I previously thought. Both of those aspects are things that we all struggle with day to day. We're all flawed human beings, and it's like, even if the decisions they make are extreme or whatever, like the motivation behind those decisions, it's not like, I'm seeing an alien civilization or something. There's something that's connected to our own humanity, even when it seems so far gone from where we would be.
And that's kind of what, I think that's an important point about fantasy as a whole, isn't it? It's like, even when you're encountering other races, it's just a different picture of how humanity interacts with itself. That's what it's doing. Yeah. Everything is just a representation of our own world. I'm just seeing this, Chris. Yeah, jump on the bandwagon. Jump on.
Hell yeah.
There's room. I'll stand up on the bandwagon so you can have a seat. Okay. I'll hold on to the side of the cart, my feet dragging in the mud, just to make sure there's room on the bandwagon for you. Okay. Agreed, right? It's that good, Nikhil.
It's really so good. Oh my God, I loved even the first book, and people say, that's kind of like, in the context of the 16 books, which I'm only 4 books deep now, but people say that that's like probably one of the lower ones on the totem pole. Would you say?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I think I said to people.
I mean, I loved it too. Yeah.
I said, this is the weak start. I think so. This was like 2 years ago, so way before I started the channel. But I just posted on my Goodreads, like, this is the weak start. This is the one that everyone tells me to get past. I'm like, this is gorgeous. I keep using the word gorgeous to describe Hobbes' writing, and I don't just mean the prose. I just mean everything it's doing. It's the perfect. It's like a slow cocktail of just magnetic. I use that word to describe other authors too, but I think Hobbes' stuff is magnetic.
Yeah.
And there's this joy that I have with Hobbes, and I've definitely said this on my channel, where it's like, you're 4 books deep and you've got 12 books to go. And sometimes with other series that can be intimidating. Like, I don't know how you felt about The Wheel of Time. Well, I do know how you feel about The Wheel of Time. But like, when you get 2 books in and you've got 12 books to go, you're excited if you like The Wheel of Time, but you're also like, that is a lot of books to go, man. And there is a bit of a mountain ahead of you. And there's a sense of intimidation. And for me with Malazan, like 2 books in, I'm looking at those 8 books. I'm like, oh, okay, so it's a bit of a project that's to come. I've never felt that way with Robin Hobb. I only ever look at books that are to come with Robin Hobb, and I go, do you know what I mean? There's so much more.
Do you think it's also because of the way she formatted it, in the sense that these sub-series, like, it feels like it's still only 3 at a time, 4 at a time, It doesn't feel like, oh, this is 16 books or, 12 books or whatever it is. So
I think that does contribute to it, yeah. I think same thing with Joe Abercrombie. I think it's a smart move from a publishing perspective as well. It's just to keep it allows you to move the world on as well, which I think a lot of authors struggle with their long series because they don't know how to kind of progress the world, and things become very stale in that middle, and even towards the end, because you created the world and now you're just kind of having your characters dance in it. Having these little gaps does create that sense of continuity and that through line.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I can't remember if you finished Memories of Ice, by the way, while I briefly mentioned Malazan. Did you finish it?
No, actually I'm halfway through now, so I'm going to basically be reading that the rest of this month.
Right.
Yeah.
Hang on. Let me.
I'm loving it though. It's great.
Have you right? What book of the four are you on? Is the best way of saying it without spoilers.
I'm at. I guess I'm towards the end of Hearthstone, the second one.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Oh, mate. Right. You text me. You text
Okay.
me.
All right. All right. We'll do.
Okay.
I'm excited.
Right. I know our time is a bit short. So we're going to aim for about an hour and a half. But
Okay.
I've got
Yeah.
two more rapid fire for you. Only fantasy or no more fantasy?
Ah, this is tough. Okay. Well,
That's a good one, isn't it?
that is really tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say no more fantasy, but then I would sneak in some fantasy because no one could stop me. No,
No, Nikhil, choose.
this is the toughest question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, on the one hand, no fantasy means there's so many genres you can explore.
Yes.
And I do find that even though I love fantasy, it would be tough to just read one genre for the rest of my life, rather than say reading like 10 genres, but not being able to read this one genre.
Yeah.
However, some of my favorite books of all time are fantasy. So
Yes.
not being able to experience more of that, like I wouldn't be able to finish Live Ship then. I wouldn't be able to read more of Philip Chase's novels. I wouldn't be able to. That's a tough one.
Yeah. We'll just call Live Ship historical fiction.
Huh?
We'll just call Live Ship historical fiction.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I guess, on the other hand, fantasy is such a blank slate that you can have fantasy horror, you can have fantasy mystery, you can have fantasy sci-fi. So maybe I would choose fantasy because there's too many good ones left to read and that are in my immediate purview. And does no fantasy also mean no magical realism? That's a good question.
It is hard, isn't it, to know where that line is? Yeah.
That's a tough one. But I guess if I had to choose,
I'm getting lots of not nitpickers, forgive me, guys. By no fantasy, is that pure fantasy only? Yeah. Anything that has a magical element. Yeah, I'll say anything that has a magical element that cannot be explained rationally. Although, then that would make Brandon Sanderson not fantasy. Anything that has a magical element. A significant magical element, no. A small, too significant magical element. We're going to be quite broad with our definition of fantasy here. It's a lot of books.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, even First Law, for instance, has a very soft magic system.
No First Law.
No First Law.
No First Law.
Oh.
I'm going to say... No.
So I thought I was going to... No First Law, that changes things a little bit. I would say then maybe I would choose no fantasy.
No, I mean, First Law counts as fantasy is what I meant.
Oh, it does. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry to make that big for you.
Okay. Then that changes everything yet again. So what a roller coaster. I think I would choose fantasy.
Do you know, I think I was going to say no fantasy. And then I tried to and my mouth like literally closed on itself.
I mean, it's like, oh, then I can't read most of Stephen King. But then I also think like I could just keep rereading The Dark Tower over and over again. And that would be just fine by me. So
yeah. Science fiction would not count as fantasy. So
unless it was sci fantasy like Sun Eater. Or
it's a science fiction, that's a question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Genre, it's muddy. Okay.
Yeah.
How about this? You can't listen to music for pleasure for a year, or you can't read for pleasure for a year. You can do them for work, but not for enjoyment.
Okay. I found a loophole. I would choose the listening. I would want to listen at the expense of reading for enjoyment, but I would make sure to study up on what is going to be adapted to pitch on and make sure to read those particular series and books. So it would be for work. So it would allow me to have my cake and eat it too. So that would be how I'd handle that.
Well, that's interesting because my follow-up, very well done. You've anticipated the next question. I've got 5 left, by the way. You can never watch a movie adaptation of a book ever, or you have to watch the movie adaptation before you read the book.
I would probably say I have to watch the movie adaptation before I read the book because I think about, well, Game of Thrones is a perfect example. I actually read the books after I had watched the show, and I loved it. It didn't take away from it at all for me. I mean, I guess hindsight's 2020, but it didn't spoil the experience for me at all. So and that was with knowing all the plot points leading up to the end of the fifth book, pretty much, right? So I felt very good about that. And since the adaptations is a huge part of my job and like what I want to continue scoring, I would want to make sure I'm watching those things. So yeah,
sure.
I would say that would be my answer personally.
Have you watched? I don't know if we've talked about this. Have you watched the Dark Tower movie?
So I've seen parts of it, and I saw enough. Maybe I saw too much, even given I've only seen parts of it. So have you seen it?
It's so bad. It's genuinely catastrophic.
It's one of the worst adaptations I've ever seen of anything. I mean, it's not even an adaptation. It's like, hey, let's take these 7 books and put it in a movie.
It's like imagine having a movie called Harry Potter that was 90 minutes long and carried and was books 1 through 7.
It would be absurd.
Genuine. So I was watching this quite closely because when Idris Elba was cast, there was obviously some corners of the internet that were very upset. And ignoring that for now, I was watching this closely. I'm like, okay. I'm like, please be good. Please be good. I was posting on my socials like, please be good. Please be good. Please be good. I was annoying everyone about the Dark Tower movie because I really loved this series. And I still do love this series. Yeah. So it came out and my friend Jonathan and I go to see the Dark Tower movie. And we're sitting there in the cinema. And sorry, I'll tell you more about this off after we finish. I literally finished this movie. And my friend Jonathan looks at me and he's like, "How did you enjoy that?" And he has a big smile on his face. And I'm like, "It wasn't good." And there wasn't even that thing of like you try and defend it, like, "Oh,
no, you can't."
Idris Elba was the only good thing about that movie.
It was unanimously just like panned for a good reason.
All the flack that what's Derry saying here? It was usually reliable for quality. Yes, he was good in that movie, though, Derry. He was actually good in that movie, and he was the only good thing. So he took all that criticism at the beginning, and he was the only thing that carried that movie remotely. And what made me so frustrated about the Dark Tower movie is that it basically kiboshed the chance of a good adaptation for years to come because they're not going to release another Dark Tower movie 2 years after because they just had one and it tanked. But it tanked because it was mishandled. They had a huge property on their hands.
Oh, 100%. Well, you'll be happy to know if you don't know already that Mike Flanagan is going to be adapting the TV series. Yeah. And I think TV series is the right way to go because to the point of, let's say, adapt Harry Potter 1 through 7 in one film. It would be absurd to do. And it'd be really like just a dumb decision, I think, in general. But even that, Harry Potter has a beginning, middle, and end that is cohesive enough that you could technically do something that has some sense of like making sense, in a 90-minute film, even if you cut out like 90% of the books. Whereas Dark Tower by convention isn't meant to be long and winding. It's meant to be completely off the grid in terms of what fantasy can be. So
and like good fireside chats and things like that as well are part of it. Like you want that them traveling through the wilderness. That's part of it. Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't feel like a journey. Like that was the whole point of it, So
all things surf the stream. Yeah. So I did hear about that, and I'm very excited. I still go in with some trepidation, but listen, Wheel of Time people are seeming to love it. And I know that there's been I know that season 1 and 2 the reception was a little bit more mixed, and season 3 seems to be like really consistently strong. So seeing that success and that growing success, gives me hope.
Which it kind of goes back to the very beginning of our conversation, like. The whole 5-album deal, 7-album deal thing with the music industry. It's like, I'm really glad that Amazon greenlit season 2 and 3 just as season 1 was coming out. So you already knew that there was time for it to get better, which, it's an ambitious project anyways. Without all the cooks in the kitchen that end up being in a big studio production, like it's an ambitious project anyways. And then, it takes time to find its footing and find its way. So I'm really glad that they didn't do a season 1, thing and one and done or season 2. I'm
gonna say this on air, and so you can't back out of it. So I'm gonna propose something to you right away, but you can't really say no because
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I already thought about it. I'm in.
Once we've watched the series or the first episode, should we do some kind of live stream discussion about it?
The Dark Tower?
Yeah, of course.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I didn't think you'd say no. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
we're both super fans, and it'd be good to have a nice redeeming conversation along the lines of it was good.
I think that would be lovely. Yeah. I wonder if it's possible to do like a kind of a live stream reaction or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. I know that people do that. Where
Yeah,
I don't have the TV over here just to keep it away from various copyright paraphernalia.
totally. Yeah, yeah. I don't know how that stuff works either, but if we can figure it out, I'm in. But
Good.
otherwise, yeah, discussion would be wonderful, man. Anytime we get a chance to chat.
Yeah. Okay. Right. 4 more very quickly. We're gonna rattle through.
Yeah. All right.
Reread old books or only new books?
Only new books.
Good. Read books only before the year 2000 or post the year 2000?
I guess post the year 2000, because I do like my modern nonfiction. But yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm the same. I think when the new releases are coming out as well, I couldn't. I'd have too much FOMO.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Would you rather have a conversation with your favorite character from a book or the author that wrote that character? That was from Joanna, I think, actually.
Huh?
That was from Joanna, actually, who wrote that one.
That's a great, that's a great question. I think author, just because I'm always interested in the creative mind behind these things and like the process. Yeah. That's just so fascinating to me,
And I feel like when you meet an author, it's almost like you're meeting all their characters at once in a kind of weird way. Not to be like, kind of, it sounds almost vaguely parasocial to say it like that, but you're meeting the mind that constructed these fictional beings. So in a sense,
and they, to some extent, write themselves into these characters,
Yeah. Okay. Last one. It's not the biggest, grandest one. It's just the one that's left. So if anything, it's the worst one. Right. You can reread your favorite 25 books over and over and over, not series, individual books. Or you can read random books, not of your choosing, for the rest of your life. So literally, I guess someone just hands you your next book.
You know what? I would
sorry,
say,
Chris, that was you. Wait, sorry to interrupt. Chris, sorry, I'm mixing you and Joanna up because you two were the sources for this. So there we go. Apologies, Chris.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that was a great one. I think I would probably say just having someone hand me my next book, and I'll tell you why. The joy of discovery to me is a huge part about the reading experience. Like that's what I've loved about BookTube, is finding out new things that I would have never put on my radar. I would have never even known about historical fiction had I not seen Josh from Red Fury Books talk about it, Brian Lee Durfee, talking about Shogun and all this stuff, and that's like totally made me find a new thing. And so I think in similar vein, like the Wheel of Time, I probably wouldn't have come across my radar had it not been for me discovering BookTube around that time and everything. So I think, if I would rather be surprised, whether pleasantly or unpleasantly so.
I guess the question is, who's handing you the book?
That is also great.
Is it like, if it was me, is it you saying, "Oh, David, I think you'd enjoy this book next. Oh, thank you very much," because we have quite similar literary tastes? Or is it like some random, person off the street walking into Waterstones and just going down to, like, I don't know, the self-help section and finding a book that says how to make £1 billion in 2 minutes, and 700 pages long with like footnotes and so there's very different consequences depending on who you choose.
That is a very different consequence. It would definitely take the joy out of reading a little bit, but at the same time, I do like. I don't know if this makes sense. I've done this to, with friends, and actually even my dad, who likes to read very different stuff, is like, recommend me something that you would read, but you don't think I would read, because I want to try something that I would ordinarily dismiss, because I've found that usually I dismiss things due to my inherent biases, right? It's like, that's not for me, but I don't really know,
I did that with Robin Hobb.
Huh?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you. I did that with Robin Hobb. I looked at the covers on the shelf. I looked at the sort of glittery, goldy, because they actually, right, okay, forgive me, Derry, okay? In fact, no, the Robin Hobb books look like the Fourth Wing books. They look this, and nothing's wrong with Fourth Wing, but like when you look at the two of them, like cover, they look interchangeable as far as I'm concerned.
Right. And even the titles,
Yeah. So I'm just kind of like, I thought that someone like Robin Hobb was far more shallow than her writing turned out to be. I didn't think it was smut or anything like that, but I just kind of thought it was a bit vapid, popcorny fantasy. And again, not there's anything wrong with that, but I had a judgment there that someone came up to me, a mate who's not on BookTube, just said, you need to actually give this a go, because I think you'd thrive on it, and she was right. So
cool. Yeah. I mean, it was actually the same with fantasy as a genre until my adulthood. Like, I'd only read Harry Potter. I'd read Dark Tower probably 2016, 2017. That was it for my fantasy experience. And I always thought fantasy was a specific type of fantasy, sword and sorcery, dragons and stuff, elves, which
Chosen one.
I've actually grown
Yeah.
to love that stuff now, but that was not an immediate selling point for me. Then when I discovered the Wheel of Time, and I was like, oh, you could have like Hindu and Buddhist philosophy in fantasy. That could be fantasy. Oh, a
Yeah.
wizard who lives in Chicago, like that's fantasy. Then it was like, oh, I didn't even realize this genre was so much more than what I thought it was. So yeah, it's cool to see how much our inherent, I think about this even on like I ran a half marathon last year, right? And I always hated running all my life, and I only did it because a friend convinced me to. And that was like a big eye-opening experience for me. I'm like, oh, I love it now. What made me decide I didn't love running? Probably middle school. These inherent biases that we kind of come up with, these stories that we come up with for ourselves about like why we like or don't like something. Sometimes it's not even related to like who we are as people now.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm
Fascinating.
sitting here, I'm trying to sit here thinking of something else that kind of similar to me, where I had a bad impression of it before I experienced it. But the truth is that they're scattered all over the place, aren't they? I think running is actually quite similar for me. I used to hate it in school.
Yeah.
The soggy, marshy PE pitches and that the teacher would say, right, okay, the line, and this, right, okay, this is borderline, or this is horrible, because what they would used to do in my school is they would have, depending on the weather, they just have all the boys and girls down, all the teenagers down on the pitch, and they'd line all the boys up and they'd make the boys run as the girls watched for sport. And then they'd swap, but they'd have all the girls, but the boys would watch for sport. So if you're like me and basically borderline incapable, 3, 2, 1, go, and you just kind of like merrily, like everyone streams ahead of you, and you're just sitting there. Oh, yeah. But then I started running myself, just at night in Tokyo during COVID, and I loved it. I loved it to pieces. And I think a really good example of this is travel as well.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So when I went to China, when was that? First time I went to China, I was 22, so like 9 years ago. I just booked a flight because it was cheap. And if you go to Japan, unfortunately, China has a super bad reputation. They say everyone's rude, everyone's and all these kind of negative connotations come up a lot. Not ubiquitously, obviously, but it has that kind of general reputation. And so I went to China for a week by myself, and I had the most wonderful week of my life.
Amazing.
Meeting people, kind of encountering all these new cultures, and what I thought this place was totally transformed through actually just going there and seeing it for myself. So I'm now rambling, but I deeply agree with what you say.
That's amazing.
I think one of the joys of life is kind of having these edges knocked off and kind of seeing what the truth is, and what the truth is in regards to how it kind of resonates with you yourself.
Actually, what you said like makes a lot of sense to me. I think it's this is kind of maybe getting a little philosophical, but I think there's like two types of knowledge, right? Like intellectual knowledge and experiential knowledge.
Yeah.
And until you experience something, you really don't have necessarily the knowledge, even if you understand it intellectually. And so like that example you're talking about of having this amazing week there, it's an experiential knowledge, that's really the only way to find out. And of course we change as people, so our perception of those experiences are going to morph with time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's why we're all readers, isn't it? It's encountering the new and encountering the new perspective, which is why I think one of those would you rather questions, we both went for the same thing right away, which is, I think that was you, Joanna, by the way.
Cool.
Would you rather read about someone like yourself or someone very dissimilar to yourself? I think that's why we both immediately just went dissimilar. Forgive me, Chris, if that one was also you. I think that's probably a really good place to end it. I genuinely had a brilliant time. I'm so glad we've done part two. And I'm always down for a part 3 whenever we can find an excuse just to hang. Because
I would love that, man. Seriously.
Before we go, I want to just share you with compliments and say you are just such a wonderful, enthusiastic talent on the space. And I think talent has that same connotation as the word content that you said you don't like, where it kind of has this genuinely talented, wonderful human being who I very much enjoy talking with, and I've been delighted to have you on. And I love to see what's going on in your channel, and you deserve everything good coming to you. So I'll wrap that up with those words.
Thank you so much, David, man. It's such a pleasure to talk with you, and I've just enjoyed, chatting with you on Instagram messaging, and then now getting to do these live streams. So definitely let's make it happen again soon. It's always a blast, man. You rock, and I just love your videos and what you bring to this community. So thank you for doing this and being here, man, and for having me.
I appreciate that. Okay, we can shout at each other when the stream ends. We can reveal our true feelings. Yeah, I'll tell you the second half of that that story that was out. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. All the best, and
Thanks.
we'll see
Good
you in
to
the
see
next one.
everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.